All right. I want to share with you now something that it's the first time that we're sharing that in this course. I never taught that before. Some of you that did with me the information saw something like that. So it was the first time that I actually communicated about it, but for most of you it will be new. If our purpose, if our goal is to get to write as fast as we can so it will look like, or it will be as close as possible to the speed that we speak, then we can actually cut the whole writing part and just speak, right? Today we all have equipment that allows us to speak into a kind of a machine that will record that. Okay, in the old days you needed a transcriber, you needed a secretary or somebody to write down notes or whatever it is. Today, every one of us is owning a recording machine in our pocket, carrying that with us all the time, and you can use that, and then take this recording and actually, in this way or another, which we'll talk about it later, transcribe it and make it into paper. Does that make sense? So this is actually cutting this process of translating. You can just speak and get it done with. And for some people it works better than others. There are consequences for that. It will be less tight than when you're writing it. So there will be more editing, but it will be done much faster. So there are advantages and disadvantages, but I want you to experiment that. Is that okay? All right. Now, the way that I'm going to describe it right now, that's the way I suggest you to do that, which is not the most intuitive way to do that, okay? But it works better. For me, I try to write stuff when I'm having a recorder and just talk to it, and I couldn't. I'm very good at speaking. I'm way better in speaking than when writing, okay? And what you're doing is you have somebody interviewing you, okay? It doesn't have to be a professional because all his job is to ask you a question and to hold a recorder for you, okay? That can be your teenage kid. Pay them a few euros for that if you want. It can be a neighbor, it can be a friend, it can be a buddy. You can do that for each other. You have the first system or you have the second system. Both of them are based and built and dependent on having a blueprint. Without a blueprint, both systems will not work and will not generate for you the most value. When you have a blueprint, you can choose between those systems. You can also play around with them, any way that works for you. You already know the statistics, the numbers and everything for the writing system. I want to show you that just to make you aware of that. Most people can or will speak about 140 to 200 words a minute. Speak. Okay, so it's much faster than writing. Okay, much faster than writing. Let's say that you're very slow or that you're saying a lot of M, or whatever it is. And just because it's also easy to calculate, let's say that you only generate 100 words a minute. Okay, so I cut it by half. Okay? Now we know that in order to generate 200 pages of about 300 words, that's 60,000 words in total, right? So your book, it's not exactly, but let's say that your book, the whole book, will be about 60,000 words. And let's say that you speak really slow, then that means that you'll need 600 minutes, right? 600 minutes of recording in order to write your book, right? Now, what is interesting about this number, that 600 minutes is exactly 10 hours. You remember the numbers we talked yesterday about writing? That was 25 hours. It's way too long. You can write your book in 10 hours straight. A 60,000 words book which will be very, very, very valuable and very, very readable because it's the way you speak. So you just saved yourself 15 hours of work. In 10 hours of talking, you can finish your book. I'll need to teach you later how to move this from a recording to a paper in the right way, but that comes in a moment, okay? But first of all about that. It is still going to take you the next 15 hours. It will not change at the end. You will just spend the 15 hours on something else, okay? No, not typing. You're not going to type a word. It's not what you're going to do. But usually, this type of text will need a lot more editing than the way that you do the other way around. Experience, okay? Maybe for you it won't happen, and then you're happy-go-lucky. But for most people, the text will be less tight this way because when we talk, we tend to talk. Okay? While when we write, it somehow works a little bit different. So you'll find out that the editing will take a lot longer, and you'll get at the end, you'll need to spend the same amount of hours. It doesn't matter. But it depends on what's easier for you and how you feel it. So before I'm going into the transcribing of it and how to put the text from your recording machine to a paper, about how to do the recording, I highly recommend to do it exactly the way we did it here. Even if you're a very auditory person, to stand in front of a machine, read yourself the question and answer it will not have the same effect as if you're telling it to somebody else, especially if you can visualize or imagine that the other person is a prospect or a client or a journalist or somebody like that. It really, really works differently. somehow. We're communicating differently when there's a person there that we can say, okay, that's a prospective client. Also, it has a lot of advantages. I mean, imagine, you can take your husband or wife and just tell them, listen, for the next 10 days, 1 hour in the evening, instead of watching television, I need you to interview me. You only can do that when you have the blueprint, and you give them the blueprint to tell them, just ask me questions. Okay, ask me one question after another. If you don't know one question, what to answer, you just tell them, jump. We'll talk about it in a moment, what to do with that. Okay, but basically, in 10 evenings, you can finish your book this way. What can be more beneficial, maybe, is how many of you have team members, this way or another? All right, so for you, why not taking one of your team members to do that, and then this person actually, you're downloading your knowledge, not just to a paper, but also to a person that is part of your team. This will be very, very valuable a few months from now when we get to the last weekend of the Business University, and we'll talk about teams, and we talk about empowering your team in order to take you away from the center of your business. Well, you already did the job. You already downloaded at least part of your knowledge to that person. Can be very valuable. In any case, I suggest to take somebody to do that for you. Okay, that will work, in my opinion, better. I suggest to do that in a quiet environment, not like this. It will be very hard to transcribe it. Some of you might not even be able to hear it. I don't know. Depends on how sensitive your machine is. If it's very sensitive, then they hear everybody else. Okay, but if you do that at home in the evening, shouldn't be no problem. All right. Next point. Very practical. How do you take that from the machine or from the recording, from the file to paper? The first rule is you do not do it. I do not allow you to type it in. It's not your job. Your job is to write the book. As soon as you spoke it, it's written. Somebody else needs to transcribe it. The job of taking from audio to text is called transcribing. Don't know how it's called in Dutch, but in English it's called transcribing. There are professional transcribers. That's their job. It's not just that they have the skill and the experience and the speed, they also have the right equipment. In order to transcribe, there's special equipment. There's these pedals that goes like in the old sewing machine, you know, that get them to stop, continue, go back or forward. You will need to do that. If you will do that yourself, every time that you didn't hear it, you need to go backwards. But just the second, it will take you forever, I promise you. 10 hours. Forget 10 hours. 1 hour of editing or transcribing for professional transcribers will take between 1 and 2 hours. For you, it will take 20 hours. Easily. Do not even think about it. It's more than that because you listen to it and you judge it and you try to edit it while you listen to it. So it will never finish, guys. It will never finish and you will hate yourself and you're going to divorce the most important person in your life. I mean, really, you will not like yourself anymore after that. So it's not your job. You give it to professional. I mean, usually when I'm teaching this in a more lower level, like articles or reports or stuff like this, I tell you can give it to the teenager neighbor or in the neighborhood, pay him 10 euros an hour or something like that, let them do that. No, you go to a professional. So this system takes 10 hours instead of 25, but it costs money. Okay? It's not that expensive. I don't know how much it costs transcribing in Holland or in Dutch, but in English, the running rates are between $30 to $60 for every 1 hour of audio. Okay? So it's between $0.50 to $1. I'm not talking about euro. $0.50 to $1 for a minute of audio, which means 600 minutes or 10 hours if you want. 10 hours will cost you between $300 to $600. This is nothing in order to get the text done right. The difference between the 300 to the 600, and I'm pretty sure that in euros, in Dutch text, it will be more expensive, but it's not a lot more expensive. So instead of $300 to $600, it will maybe be 300 to 600 euros or 350 or 400 to 800 euros. It doesn't matter. You can finish your book with 1,000 euros and less, the transcribing, and this is important to do. And the difference, by the way, between the low budget and the high budget is how much editing they do for you. The low part, they will just do what is called verbatim, which is basically everything that you put in will be out. But you'd make all those stupid mistakes, and you tell, honey, bring me coffee. They will actually transcribe that for the cheap price. Okay? For the higher price, they will edit the text. They will correct typos. They will remove the and and im and and all those mistakes and all those repetition. Hey, let me rephrase it differently. They will drop that and we'll just put the right text. So it costs a little bit more. I actually use transcribers all the time because we are having everything recorded by video. We scrape the audio and that goes immediately to transcribers. I'm working with a lot of those. And for stuff that I want to go into written material, real written material, then I'm paying even more because they're already doing the editor's job. They will give me text that it's already ready. Okay? So it depends on your budget, it depends on how much you want to invest in that. My recommendation, if you choose this system, pay as much as you can, so you do the less job you can, you get the best text out, and all you need to do is to organize it nicely and maybe say, that's not that important, I'm removing it, or I need to add a few sentences here, and you add them. What will happen is that you do this hour of recording every evening, you send that usually online to those people, and in the morning you're getting in text, clean and nice. You pay a little bit of money for that, it's worth every cent. You're not kids anymore, you're not amateurs, you want to become professional, then put some budget on that and do it. The easiest way, the way that I'm doing it, that I always will not send them a whole book. I will send them the first hour, I'll tell them to transcribe it, I want to see the results. If you like it, keep on working with them, otherwise go to somebody else. Very easy. Is that okay? Yes. Good. I wouldn't want to go with software, because software needs to, software is not intelligent, so many times it makes those stupid mistakes, so you will need to edit every single word, and if you don't do that, then your editor or your publisher will find it out and he's not going to like you for that. Software is good for your notes. You know, when you make for yourself notes, when you have ideas, when you're in the car and you say, hey, I have this idea and I need to remember that, so you record it into your mobile phone, and then you put it through the software, and you let them, not for a text that needs to go out. In my opinion, you do what you want. Don't try to save money on this. It's really not a lot of money. Okay, it's really, I mean, your book is going to generate for yourself so much more than the €1,000 you're going to pay for that. And you need to think about it, because there will be more expenses with your book. Okay? There will be expenses on editor at the end if you want to do that, if you want to take an editor, especially if you're working in a language that is not yours. You might have expenses on translation, on designing. There's a lot of expenses that it's not a lot, but you need to consider them. And tomorrow I'll talk about it. Do you want to let the publisher take those expenses or you? Because if you get the publisher many times will want to take those expenses, but you don't want to take them. Because whatever they pay for, they own. Including graphic design, including translations, including all kinds of stuff. And you don't know if this publisher, you want to work with them forever. I'll talk about it tomorrow, okay? But just plan that if you're using this book and this is going to change your business and grow your business, well, you want to make it right. And if it costs you a few hundred euros more, then you should be so happy to spend them. I said to you yesterday that writing a book when you have a blueprint, only when you have the blueprint, then writing a book is like copying a piece of paper from one place to another. It's from here to here. It's the same with the audio. You're downloading your knowledge. You all have that knowledge. 90% of the book you already know. We'll talk about the 10% that you don't know. That's the research coming up. Okay, but 90% of the book, you know it already. You talk about it every single day. You are doing it maybe for 20 years. So by having the structure for that, which is called the blueprint, then all you have to do is ask yourself a question and answer it. Ask a question, answer it. And it will download the best information you have.